the Bun. Hello, I'm the Bun. Welcome to the channel. This is Stuck with the Bun. This is a show all about things that you're stuck on, that I'm stuck on, that I've been stuck on. Today's show, we're gonna take a closer look at the first step of 4 from the last Stuck with the Bun. 4 steps with their own focus, philosophy, and workflow to maximize the results at every step. In the last Stuck with the Bun, we were talking about the 4 stages of music production. The first stage we kind of put together because this is focused on folks like me who are sitting at the desk, guitar, bass, drum program, and there you go. Have at it, instrumental metal. Realized recently that a lot of folks are not aware of the various steps. So the 4 stages that we covered in the first video, just a recap of that, was writing and pre-production, recording and production, mixing, and mastering and deliverables. If you are working with vocals and lyrics and all of that kind of stuff, you may want to split the first stage into 2 stages. But seeing as this is all instrumental stuff, all the stuff I do is instrumental, and most of the people who watch this channel are also doing instrumental stuff because it rules. We're gonna smash them together because the line is very blurry. You're doing it all at the same time. This episode of Stuck with Bun is brought to you by everyone with me over at Patreon and YouTube memberships. If you'd like to get involved yourself, the links are down below, but huge thanks to everyone with me at both of those places. So with writing, the question is, what are we making? The thing we're most concerned with is the riffs, the hooks, the parts, the stuff that will make up the verses, the choruses, the tags, the intros, the outros, the codas, the bridges. We're most concerned with what are those parts. In addressing the style of the music, what are the references? Are we copying another style of music? A lot of people do that. Are we doing more of a collage kind of thing? You know, where we're taking tiny little slices of a million different kinds of things and all putting them together. What are those references? Or maybe it's a non-musical reference. My pal Lucas, he likes to refer to his music as giant objects moving through space. Feel and aesthetics would be the next thing. And this is where we think about tonality, key, tempo, time signature, all the stuff that makes up the feel and the aesthetics of it. What are those things? And then quantity. How many tracks are we going for? Are we doing a single, a maxi, an EP, an album? What are we doing? And then finally, timeline. How much time do we have to do all of this? And when do we seek to be done the writing process? Because we still need to address having enough time for the rest of the process. Pre-production is, what does all this stuff need? What does the music need? During the pre-production process, we want to consider arrangement, orchestration, sounds, and layers. Arrangement, how will the parts be arranged? You know, how will we take the blocks of what we've come up with and arrange them? Next is orchestration. How will the instruments work to serve the arrangement? The layers of the blocks, if you will. Sounds. What sounds will we need? Guitar, bass, drums, etc. I just use guitar, bass, drums, but maybe use other things, more things. How do these need to sound in character to best serve the material that we're coming up with? The sounds of the layers in the blocks informs how things need to be produced and mixed. So we need to sort this out now. Finally, layers. Will the material require more or less layers to achieve the desired aesthetics and feel of what we're going for in the end? Another thing with layers is to think about how will you reproduce the music if you seek to play it out live. Are you gonna need backing tracks? Can you do it with the band that you have? I don't like the idea of backing tracks personally, so I have to be really mindful here that I create things that can be reproduced live. Writing and pre-production in action. I got this project going on. It is Wetlands. The tune is called Decorated. This project started with more of a Sabbath kind of sound to it, and it doesn't have that anymore. For Wetlands, we have a really sludgy, blues minor based kind of choppy thing. And we use these bass 6 guitars. Tuning and the types of guitars and the sounds that they make have an influence on what kind of riffs happen. That's the style. This thing is all in triplets or 3/4 or 6/8, whatever. It has a 3-feel. That's always happening. There is a little bit of 4-feel stuff. It's mostly 3-feel, and it's got this sort of like sludgy paste to it. For this, I'm only doing one track. I started on it actually last month, and I ran out of time because I got stuck. This section here was all last month. The problem was the time signature. Time signature actually was a problem in terms of elaborating on the track in the way that I wanted to. By the time I did figure it out, it was like days before Bandcamp Friday last month. I had about 38 days to complete the tune for the next Bandcamp Friday. By the time this goes up, it should be Bandcamp Friday. I think it was 16 days to write it, to finish writing it. And you can see there's a ton of clips here. All of these clips, a lot of them didn't make it. Important to know, because once you finish writing it, you got to re-record everything and then mix it and then master it and then, get the artwork together and all that kind of stuff. The music I make is not, singer-songwriter stuff. There isn't like verses, choruses, and all that in the traditional sense, but I still think of things in terms of verses, choruses, and otherwise, because I want to try my best to make engaging music. The beginning is sort of a chorus kind of thing. The beginning and the end are sort of a chorus thing. The end. And then the next section is sort of the verse section, the elaboration of the story. So that goes into a mellower section. Same part. The bridge section is this sort of ethereal departure from everything else. Everything else that is in here is a transition or a turnaround of some kind, a variation of the turnaround. Typically only write 3 parts, and everything else supports those 3 parts. The arrangement, how many parts do I have, and what do the parts do? What's their job? Orchestration is what instruments are being used to create it all and when are they happening. I drop stuff out a lot. Here's an example here. So examples of orchestration. What's playing and what's not playing at any given time, and how that serves the overall movement and feeling and everything of the track. Sounds. Sorting out your sounds in the writing and pre-production phase is pretty important. I didn't have to do that on this one. I used the Wetlands Helix tones, which is what I use on all of the Wetland stuff, and it's all for bass 6. The way a lot of people think about layers is how many instruments are playing at one time. But it can also be how the track is layered according to the orchestration and arrangement. So in this case, the layers, there are multiple layers. In terms of guitars, there are 6 layers of guitars, but very rarely are they playing over each other. And it's only in this one section where we have a riser to kind of elevate the mood going into the final section. So that's the only place where there are guitars over top of other guitars. I always do bass, center, guitar left, guitar right, and that's it. I don't do quad tracking or whatever. Maybe you do. Maybe you do a ton of other things too. Maybe you play out live with backing tracks. I don't know. I don't do that. Some of the key takeaways of all of this are probably, get it out of your head. Ideas swimming around in your head are usually not very good. Ideas that are recorded and worked out are better. Sorting it out to a click or to a beat, something like that. Make sure that the rhythm makes sense. If you think it's a pretty good idea, build it out. It only has to be a bar or 4 bars, whatever. Something I notice a lot is a lot of people, they just have one idea and they just record that one idea or work on that one idea and they don't elaborate on the idea. What are the variations of that one idea that are available to you. A lot of lesser experienced folks, I've noticed, they think that they have to record the whole thing. You literally can record one bar or one beat of one bar if you want. You can build out a track that way. And then once you get to the final recording, kind of learn it all and play the longer parts and work on the feel. I did a video on the Dan Electro baritone vintage, or vintage baritone rather. In that video, I talk about the blocks and I show examples. We actually built it out with blocks, loopable blocks. So I'll link that down below. If we go back to the screen and we go to the actual writing demo, it's all these tiny blocks, you know, that you can move around. That's the beautiful thing about working with the DAW. I notice a lot of people start at the beginning and they just keep going until they end. So the riff they start with is the intro. And I'm like, maybe it's not the intro. Maybe it's a bridge. Maybe it's something else. Be concerned about how the track is going to be built and what kind of parts you actually have. Most people are obsessed with adding more. More isn't better. Better is better. And if it's not better, get it out of there. If more is better, then keep it. Going back to the screen here, in this track, I was struggling with the bridge section. And then I just realized, I'm like, it's so much better, ultra minimal. And it so contrasts the rest of the tune, because the rest of the tune is insane. There is a tendency for a lot of guitar players to set their sounds up, not listening to any of the parts, not listening to any of the instruments, just like listening to the amp and be like, I'm gonna dial my amp in. To what? What are you dialing it into? You wanna definitely dial your amp in to the sounds that you're working with, the other instruments that you're working with. Thanks again to everyone with me over at Patreon and YouTube memberships. If you'd like to get involved yourself, the links are down below in the description. If Patreon and YouTube memberships is not your thing, but you'd still like to get involved in some way, there is music available for download and stream. There is merch available to wear. And there is assets, creative assets. The links to all of that are down below. Thank you very much to everyone who has ever helped out with any of those things. Very keen to hear about what your process looks like. If you're applying any of this stuff, what are you applying it to? What are you working on? Would love to know. Anyhow, that's it for this one. I hope to see you in the next one, and hope you like this one.